good morning, everyone. Welcome to our panel on navigating the waves of the blue economy. So when I see this topic, I already, like today, I feel chilly already. So my name is Deng, a partner at Reed Smith in New York. We are very delighted to have our esteemed panelists today, Richard Tao from DNV, John Lycouris from Dorian LPG, Randy Giveans from Navigator Gas, and Piyush Sharma from NSB Group. So first of all, I would like my panelists to introduce themselves and their business briefly. So Richard, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Han, and I'm very happy to join this panel talking about blue economy. And actually, this is my third time in the Capital Link. And yeah, it's very happy to be on the same panel with all the distinguished panelists. And my name is Richard Tao. I'm heading the Maritime Advisory Service in Region Americas for DNV. And for those who don't know the Maritime Advisory of DNV, we are a global unit in DNV Maritime, and with a mission to empower clients with innovative solutions and expert guidance to address the maritime challenges in the area of decarbonization and digitalization. Thanks.
Hi, I'm John Lycouris from Dorian LPG. We are a very large gas carrier in LPG company. We run about 25 ships, and we've been in the New York Stock Exchange for the last 10 years. We believe that this business is going to be strong in the next decades to come because it's a clean fuel that is high in demand.
Thanks, Randy Giveans with Navigator Gas, Executive Vice President of Investor Relations and Business Development here in North America. We own 56 LPG vessels, focused mostly on the handy-size segment, carrying ethane and ethylene, as well as the LPG commodities. We also own 50% of an ethylene export terminal, along with Enterprise Products Partners down in Houston, Texas.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Piyush Sharma. I'm from NSB Group. We are a maritime services provider, been in existence for about 42 years. We do the traditional services of ship management, crew training, and new building services. And we have been pioneers of sorts in the past, doing tankers early on in Germany in the 90s, and pioneering a few concepts which were, to some extent, early for the times that they were. And we essentially navigate the blue economy for owners as agents to make sure that they are able to do sustainably.
Thank you, everyone. So moving on to our first topic, blue economy. Last night, I can't stop thinking, why it is called blue economy? Why not green economy? And then I was thinking, I think, oh, maybe it's because everything is connected to the water and the ocean, and this is larger than just the maritime sectors. It actually covers very broadly. So I think that's why it's called blue economy. But the World Bank defines the blue economy as the sustainable use of ocean resources for economic growth, improved livelihoods, and the preservation of ocean ecosystem health. So my first question for Randy is, how do you incorporate blue economy in the context of your operations?
Sure, thanks, Han. So clearly shipping is the largest, cheapest, and therefore most efficient form of transportation around the globe. At Navigator, that's the vast majority of what we do, really port-through-port operations, a little bit from the terminal side, but mostly on the shipping side. So for us, it's really connecting the world today, creating a more sustainable tomorrow. So clearly the producers and consumers of propane, ethane, ethylene, ammonia, which we carry a lot of, are very widespread. So the only way to connect those is through international shipping. That's what we do. On the more sustainability front, we have focused on that immensely, especially on the energy efficiency savings, which I'm sure we'll get into later. A lot of that is around hardware and software on the vessels, but also looking into more sustainable future fuels, right? Ammonia as a fuel is certainly something we're interested in. We've been doing ship-to-ship transfers of ammonia around the globe. And then clearly on clean ammonia production, we've invested in a project there in Texas as well for blue ammonia mostly, but also some green ammonia for both production and exports. So we're looking at it from both connecting the world and also on the sustainability angle, keeping it blue or green economy, to your earlier comments.
Oh, thank you, Randy. So, Piyush, what are the key opportunities you see in the blue economy, and how are you positioning your business to take advantage of the growth potential in sustainable maritime sectors?
Yeah, thank you, Anne. Thank you. Interestingly, for us, we see two different opportunities in the blue economy. One is obviously the standard, the straight one, where we are helping our owners try to find sustainable solutions, work on various projects like methanol-driven vessels, hybrid vessels with battery operation, and in fact, also a project on wind assist on tankers. But the second part, which is also very equally important for us, and we give it the same seriousness as what we do with the owners, is trying to be involved in non-profit organizations which are there to conserve the ocean resources. So in fact, we are one of the ambassadors of NYSE's project to remove pollution from the ocean. We are evaluating two other projects, one on the coral gardeners and one on the turtle conservation. So for us, both these types of challenges go hand in hand in way how we see to tackle the blue economy.
Oh, I see. Thank you. So I'm sure that there are a lot of challenges, risks, and uncertainties when we are navigating the blue economy. So, John, how are you addressing the rising pressure to decarbonize within your fleet?
Yeah, thank you, Han. It's a complicated solution. We have to use operational performance, technological performance, and big data digitalization to enable our ships to perform better than they have been performing, even better than they were performing when they were first delivered from the shipyard. So the crux of the matter is how to operate efficiently with less emissions, better profile for the ship and for the fleet, and that takes a lot of work and effort in looking and trying to get, first of all, the low-bearing fruits of performance realization, and then the harder to get actions that you need to take to be able to have ships that will be able to perform in the 2030s. And thereafter, you have to look at next step technologies, because for the time being, we think that the transition technologies are there for the shipping industry. It's the second stage of the 2030s that we're going to have to be challenged, and we have a few technologies that we are looking at for the future. So that's about it. I don't want to take more time on this.
Yeah, thank you, John. Richard, I know DNV is very involved in decarbonization, and I read a recently published DNV Maritime Forecast To 2050 report. It's 73 pages, very helpful. What has been the impact of Poseidon principles and other policies such as 1.5 degree initiatives in your experience?
Okay, thanks, Han. I think your question has twofold, and one is on our report on the Maritime Forecast 2050, and the other one is this Poseidon and the 1.5 initiative from the shipping finance side. So I can address the first one. We publish Maritime Forecast 2050 report every year, and this year is actually the number 8 updates. And typically what we were doing is we look at the regulatory development, we look at the technology development, we also look at the energy price and also the fuel production capacity development. We put all those variables into our model, which we call the fuel pulse model. And we try to use the updated information to project what's going to happen in the future. And of course, all those parameters are changing all the time. So therefore, we have our annual updates on the report. So here are some of the key takeaway from this year's report. And I think you can actually go to our website and download the report. It's actually 75 pages. But all the key essence of the report is we feel decarbonization in shipping is slowing down. And half of the new building fleet still are running sort of the traditional fuel, and also 93% of the fleet in operation still running the conventional fuel. And then the fuel technology is progressing, but not fast enough right now. And then in order to reach the target, typically the close the target, 2030, and we feel that energy efficiency measure is getting more and more important. And in addition, at the same time, we also see shore power and onboard carbon capture and storage will play important element for the short term and also the medium term measures. But all those things will need a quite big infrastructure investment. And all the shipping cost due to the decarbonization will be growing, and we also projecting that, for example, container ships, the cost for decarbonization will typically double in 2050. So those are the key takeaway from the Maritime Forecast 2050 report. Then in terms of Poseidon Principle and 1.5 initiative, those are sort of the programs set by a number of the banks and insurance company in order to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And the DNV has been heavily involved with the member banks, try to figure out the trajectory every year, helping them to do the reporting. And what we found is Poseidon Principle has been driving the sustainable shipping finance for a number of the years, and has greatly contributed to drive the shipping decarbonization, together with other elements like regulations, regulators, and the cargo owners. But gradually we will find some of the setbacks on the Poseidon Principle, typically in terms of unbalanced target setting towards certain segment of the shipping. And therefore, we have seen the 1.5 initiative is coming, and that is similar to the Poseidon Principle, but refined with more aggressive but balanced target setting. And that goal is to follow the requirement of net zero banking alliance, and then the meet 1.5 degree in target set by end of the century. And currently there's 11 banks has been already participating, and with about $95 billion ship lending.
Thank you, Richard. So I think as a lawyer, I just finished studying on Poseidon Principles. Now I need to study more about 1.5 initiative. My next question is for Randy and Piyush. So as ship owners and ship managers, what are the biggest challenges in adapting to the economy you see, and how do you mitigate those risks?
I'll start. I think the biggest challenge for us is just the absence of global regulations and really creating an even playing field for those who operate clean and those who are a little dirtier in their operations. No one in this room, but certainly they're out there, right? Now, the increased cost for cleaning up shipping and cleaning up emissions is pretty large, but when spread out over, billions of consumers, it's maybe 1 or 2%. So for us, in terms of mitigating those risks, in the near term, we're doing a lot of the efficiency upgrades, propeller upgrades, high-performance paints, some of the route optimization software and other things. But for really larger, kind of longer-term investments, such as ammonia as a fuel or onshore power, right, for the vessels, that's going to require customers or charterers to help subsidize and pay for those costs. So in the near term, we're doing what we can to reduce our emissions, reduce our fuel burn, which is helping the environment and obviously the emissions, but also profitable endeavors because it does reduce our fuel consumption. But again, for the longer term projects, we're going to need charterers to help pay for those.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Anne. For the question, at least from our side as ship managers, The one big challenge we always see is the adoption of first mover technology with small and medium scale owners. This is a big thing. As you see, most of the owners are in the wait and watch norm, and they're looking to see what others will do. That is one big challenge. And when the time comes, there would be more measures taken which are like, patch up and go ahead and do that rather than a full series. So that is one definite challenge. Obviously, the risk we see is the lack of fuel. The infrastructure around it, which many of us know, is also not prompting the owners to go for the vessel. So in all, it becomes a catch-22 situation. Just as an example, as I was mentioning early on, in 2015, we were incorporating an LNG vessel design. There was one big owner who had the vision to do this. We were supporting the owner. Somehow, towards the end, the project fell through. And when we went out with this project to many other owners, there were not many takers. And everybody was very suspect about LNG as a fuel. Today, of course, it's a different story. LNG and methanol are the biggest, fuels, dual fuel propositions right now. So that is what we see. And of course, the third biggest challenge and the risk which we see is the lack of manpower, which has been pointed out in the earlier panels too. The people who have been educated in a very different technology need to be re-educated and upscaled to the present technology, and the younger generation needs to come to that. So that is what we see as the challenges and risks.
Oh, thank you both. Moving on, I want to ask, talk about the financing and the investment in blue economy. And the question is for all the panelists. Are you seeing sufficient interest from investors in the blue economy, and what are the potential financing sources for the sustainable fuel? And do you see this as a chicken and egg situation? Like the financiers will have a very big say in the or impact on the choice of future fuels.
Yeah.
So maybe Piyush, maybe.
Yeah, maybe I can take this. Maybe since I'm one of the EU company representatives here, start off with a bit of a measure on what EU is doing. In fact, there is a lot of interest in the sustainable development of the blue economy. And just to put numbers in perspective, the EU Department of Maritime has recently come out with a very interesting report called Blue Invest. And in that, it mentions that there have been 75 funds launched since 2017 focusing on the blue economy. At least 17 of them are directly focused on the blue economy. The remaining 48 have one or the other technology being used for the blue economy. And just as recent of early this year in May, the EU launched a sort of award scheme, and there were 20 EU blue champions awarded. And these companies are there to promote the blue technology, and they will be supported also by venture debt from EIB and the likes of sources. So that is one angle. The World Bank, on the other hand, is doing more with the developing countries. They have launched projects to see if sustainable fuel can be produced in the Pacific Island nations and also in some African countries. And then, of course, we have our traditional banks who are looking at sustainable loans and green loans. So from my point of view, definitely there is an appetite for this.
Oh, that's very interesting. 75 new funds.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly more interest from the banks than investors. In my investor meetings, I've never been asked, how much money we're giving to charity, right? They're looking for profits, but they are interested in kind of our fuel efficiency upgrades and some of our other investments in terms of 1008 or Zane, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But from the banks, there's certainly appetite there. We've seen that with some of our sustainability-linked loans as of late, where the margin gets reduced as our emissions get reduced. So financing, absolutely. Investors, not as much.
Thank you.
Yeah, to add to what Randy said, I agree with you 100% of what you said about this availability. There's also a lot of export credit finance, which is available for new buildings. There's a lot of new buildings coming, and export credits are widely available from most of the countries that ships are being built. Then for public companies, there's equity raises that can help them in financing new tonnage. The market is interested in new tonnage, which is better positioned for the future, has features that can make it survive in the future. And then finally, Western banks have a very good appetite in shipping that focuses on projects that build ships that are more able to survive the future challenges of decarbonization of the 2030s and 40s. And that's really the key matter that everybody should be concerned about.
So the ECA financings, for example, in China or Korea, those will be backed by Sinosure and K-Shore insurance policy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Richard?
Okay, I think there are two perspectives on this. I think if you look at the wide perspective of blue economy, and I think that's very much depending on the segment and also the geographical locations. And I think typically in Europe, there's a lot of interest. And if you look at fish farming on the blue economy and also offshore winds, and then Asia is also very interested. And then on the offshore wind, we see the US is picking up with new projects going this year. And then also there's a lot of discussion on seabed minings. And but then if you change along this discussion on the sustainable fuel, and I have a little bit different view because we see typically what Han mentioned about the chicken and the egg, and that is really challenging right now. And take one example, we had data from methanol institutions. And currently 70% of the total pipeline project on the methanol, carbon neutral methanol, is still in the feasibility stage. And there's no final investment decision. And that is one of the reasons why we see what we call the methanol happy hours are ending now. So, yeah.
I see. Okay, thank you everyone for your insight. And moving on to touch on the topic of innovation and technology. So navigating the blue economy during challenges like the supply chain disruption we have seen during COVID, the Baltimore bridge collapse in March this year, and the recent US port strikes that last for 3 days, but the negotiations would resume in January. And climate changes this year, such as extreme heat and hurricanes and regional conflicts and wars, I'm sure all of this require innovation and technology to ensure resilience, sustainability, and economic growth. So my question for all the panelists is, can you share examples of technological advancements that your company is involved in that promote sustainability in shipping?
We are involved in, we've been one of the leaders in installing scrubbers on our ships and since they were built. And we have been following that, and we have up to now 15 of our ships with scrubbers. We think it's a step towards cleaner emissions, and also it's a step towards carbon capture, because you need a scrubber to get to carbon capture in the future. So that's one of the thinkings that we are doing. And second one is we're trying to look into installing batteries in our ships to be able to provide steady electricity and avoid blackouts, which we think is also a key factor. And the last thing we're trying to do right now, for right now I'm talking about, because I'm sure there's going to be more things coming up in the future, we want to install the ability to cold iron our ships in ports, because I think the ports should be moving ahead faster than what has happened up to now. It's a shame to be talking about, green and sustainability, et cetera, and not to have ports that can service ships with green power, green electricity, or at least blue electricity, and stop the emissions in ports and near land. So I think these are the three items that we are looking immediately right now. I'm sure there's more things that I can talk about, and
Oh, that's very interesting. Let me just add a quick comment here. So you mentioned the ports are actually advancing faster. So we have been talking about decarbonization on the field level, at the company level, but how about the port decarbonization?
well, exactly.
Yeah. Richard, do you have any insights on this?
Yeah, I think the previous panel, we had a port director talking about.
Right.
I think this is really something which are interesting because there's also quite big potential for decarbonization of the port operations, and in terms of your machinery, the fuel, the energy use, as well as providing the shore power to the ships, and then. If you look at the ESG measurements, and then there's a company, shipping company, typically you need to report scope 1, 2, 3, and then the port is kind of the energy consumption will be your parts, the scope 3 emissions.
Thank you.
Yeah, on that note, over at Morgan's Point, our ethylene export terminal, we're working with Enterprise to get that cold ironing kind of onshore power in place, also getting those kind of upgrades to our vessels to be able to use that, right? So it's kind of, you need both on that side. But also, in terms of energy efficiency, I've been mentioning our propeller upgrades, the high-performance paints, some of those things. Also working very hard at developing clean ammonia as a future fuel. We have an approval in principle with DNV for an ammonia-powered vessel. We've done these ship-to-ship transfers of ammonia, both in South Africa as well as Australia. We've invested in Azane Fuel Solutions, which is an ammonia bunkering company, kind of starting in Scandinavia, but certainly going to spread globally thereafter. An investment in 1008 for blue and green ammonia production down in Texas, and obviously that will kind of feed into ammonia bunkering and these other things. So we've done a lot, both in the near term on our vessels with the terminal, as well as looking to progress into the future with some of these other larger, longer-term investments.
That's right.
Yeah. Giving a manager's perspective, we can say we haven't yet found the innovation and technology to minimize geopolitical risks. But jokes apart, I mean, we as managers focus on the hardware part of the industry and also the software part. On the hardware, we are definitely looking at new innovations, new technology to reduce the carbon footprint and also have proper usage of the vessels. We are working closely with owners, as I previously mentioned, on various aspects such as methanol, hybrid batteries, wind assist on vessels. And on the software part, given that we are managers and also operating in the EU, so we are very much affected by EU ETS and the Fuel EU Maritime. So we are working very hard and close on the digitalization of various shipboard operations to ensure that we have the proper data early on to see what risks we are undertaking and how do we then mitigate those risks. So that is how we look at it from the manager's point of view.
Thank you, everyone. So moving on, I want to do a quick fire round of survey on the future alternative fuel. So just very quick answers. I'm going to ask 3 questions. The tech team, can you pull up the PowerPoint slides? So our firm, RISMES, did a survey on 50 key clients on the future sustainable fuel sources in transportation. Next slide, please. Okay, so it's not just in shipping, but also aviation, road, rail, and other sectors. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first question, are you ready? What are the transitional fuels most likely to be used in the next 3 to 5 years? So our survey outcome is nearly half of the respondents cited dual fuel and LNG as the most likely to be used as a transitional fuel in the next 3 to 5 years. So the panelists, you can choose more than one answer. So I'll start with Piyush.
I couldn't agree more. I would say the similar. Yeah, LNG and a dual fuel, a combination of different fuels. Yeah, biofuel would that be, yeah.
Okay, and Randy.
Yeah, same, especially for 3 years. When you start getting to 4 or 5 years and beyond, I think clean ammonia will start emerging as a front runner.
And John.
Yes, the first and the second. But instead of LNG, it would be LPG for us. So we would use LPG and a mixture of sustainable and non-sustainable energy sources. There is another one that I would like to add, which is electricity, because it's just something that I think it should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard?
Yeah. For 3 and 5 years, I will go for biofuel plus LNG.
Okay. And next question. Which fuel has potential for wide-scale application? So half of the respondents in our survey say biofuel and green hydrogen are the sustainable fuel sources most likely to be widespread application in the transportation sector. So now this round going from Richard.
I agree biofuel, and I think LNG will be important element. I'm a little bit doubt on the green hydrogen.
John?
I would say renewable fuels rather than biofuels. There's just not enough biofuels for everybody. So it has to be renewable fuels and electricity from renewable sources.
Okay. Randy?
Yeah, apparently I was not part of this poll earlier because I'm going with the bottom one there. Clean ammonia. I think it's certainly going to be widespread. It will be produced in the US, it'll be produced in the Middle East, it'll be produced in Australia, various other regions. So it'll be widespread and it'll be pretty cheap, especially on the blue ammonia side.
From my side, I think the immediate 3 to 5 would be biofuel, but I won't rule out nuclear for the longer term. That has some interesting potential as we read through the research and what the prototypes are doing.
Okay, Randy, I will suggest to my firm to redo the survey. We will see an increase on ammonia after your panel today.
I'll give you my phone number.
So the final question, what are the biggest barriers in the next 5 to 10 years? And over a third of our respondents said the cost of sustainable energy and inadequate infrastructure in the supply chain would be the 2 biggest barriers to transitioning to sustainable fuel in the next 5 to 10 years. So starting from Piyush.
Yeah. I would say cost is a very quick factor which can change very quickly, so I wouldn't attribute such an importance to that. But my bigger concern would be the infrastructure and the lack of educated manpower for the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay. Randy?
Yep, certainly those first 2, but also towards the bottom, the 16%. Regulatory uncertainty, right? Again, back to my earlier comments, not really sure who's going to enforce it, what the penalties are going to be, and things keep slipping. So hopefully we get some more regulatory certainty in the near term.
Okay, John.
Okay, for me it would be supply chain, the lack of inadequate infrastructure, and the regulatory uncertainty are the 2 items that are of great concern.
Okay, Richard.
Yeah, I think I agree with most of your point. I think when talk about cost and associated with availability, those are hand in hand. But then I think I totally agree with the regulatory uncertainties, and I think IMO, the well to wake, the new regulation is kind of important, and also the potential cost of CO2 will having a big influence on which fuel will dominate it.
Okay, thank you, everyone. As promised, it's a quick fire round, so I'm not going to ask more explanations and questions. But the audience, if you have more questions, especially on ammonia, please, you know where to find our panelists. So I see I only have 5 minutes left on the clock, and moving on to the closing remarks. So thank you, the tech team. So far, we have discussed questions focused on shipping and sustainability. But as mentioned earlier, blue economy covers more broadly, such as sectors in renewable energy, offshore shipbuilding, fishing, mining, human resources, and beyond. The success of the blue economy also relies on the maritime workers who work on the ocean and the shore. As mentioned in our previous panel, the key is maritime workforce. And the recent US port strike is a reminder that the dock workers are critical for the success of the blue economy and their work conditions and their employment contracts are under intense discussions these days. So on closing remark, I would ask our panelists on your thoughts on how to get young people interested in the blue economy and for the continuance of the qualified and reliable maritime workforce. I'll start from Piyush.
Yeah, thank you, Anne. I guess from our side as managers, which is a very service-dominant industry, manpower is critical for our success. And to educate and to be able to, provide an environment which the young people feel that they are able to positively contribute to a change is very essential for us. And second but not the least is also the fact that our existing seafarers and our shore staff need to have the view that this is not a commodity business. This is a business which is an intellectual property which is requiring the people to be paid adequately. And ship management over the years has been in different forms and shapes, looking at different ideas. So for us, the key driver to educate the young people and to invite them and attract them is to make this place creative enough that they feel challenged and that they feel that they will contribute to some common good.
Yeah, in terms of attracting young people, I heard a rumor that Taylor Swift will be at the next Capital Link Forum. So if you want to spread that around, it might happen. And in the meantime, Nicholas Bernosis has started a TikTok channel, so he'll be dancing around. So a few things there. But on a more serious note, sustainability is certainly going to be key to this, right? When people think shipping, maybe the younger generation, that's kind of a dirty word, and fossil fuels and all the other things. But I think when we're showing that we're focused on cleaning up shipping, and it's still, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the largest and cheapest form of transportation, so very efficient and very necessary. But if we can clean that up a little, that would go a long way. And then in terms of crew, really making sure they are safe and they enjoy their jobs, and it's something that is not a backup plan, but something that people want to really get involved in. And I think in terms of the attracting the next generation, it's easy to say, oh, this is someone else's, this is the industry problem, but you need to make it kind of an individual problem. And I know for me, my wife is about to have our 4th child, and they all want to be like Dad, so at least we'll have 4 next generation shipping people. So.
Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Cadet programs is a very important way to bring people into our business. We also try to enforce DEI programs. We try to bring in younger people where there is more automation on board the ships. And just like it was said on the previous panel, younger people can cope with digitalization or with automation. And therefore, the profession is changing, is becoming a lot more complex. And I think younger people are starting to see this. And so we focus on our cadet programs. We focus on young officers or junior officers. And we think that digitalization, automation is helping to attract a larger amount of human resources to the trade.
I totally agree with what John says. I think the future, if we look at the shipping and the crew, and the future shipping will be a little bit different from it used to be, and we will see all the alternative fuel which will be used for ships, and instead of low sulfur fuel, and now we talk about the liquefied gas. And then you will have a lot of energy efficiency measures on board. You may have a sail, you may have the carbon capture and storage units, which are bring the new perspective on board. And then you have also the digitalization, autonomous. And those bring a lot of new challenges to the people. And I think if I look at how to attract the young talents, I think the job has to be interesting, has to be challenging, has to be meaningful, and has to be rewarding. So I think those challenging in the shipping will bring all those parameters into the equation. But if you look at the big blue economy, then we talk about a large perspective: transportation, energy, and the seabed mining, medicine, tourism, and that's a very, very big economy. We talk about $3 trillion per year So those are very, very interesting areas. I think what we possibly need to do is to have awareness and then maybe do a little bit of marketing.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. So first of all, I want to ask Nicholas to register me for the next Capital Link event where Taylor Swift will participate. And I also want to share this news that Taylor Swift's best friend, Lana Del Rey, the famous singer, is actually at the very core of blue economy right now. She recently married a swamp airboat captain in New Orleans. Yeah. So I'm sure Lana Del Rey will be at the next Capital Link event too. So thank you to all my panelists, and thank you Capital Link, and thank you the audience. All of you guys are amazing. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.